Oh, that's hot. That's hot.
Suicide Squad 2016 was a mess of a movie, to say the least. I think this has been covered a lot and almost everyone agrees with that statement. The movie was filled with problems, but if I had to point out its biggest problem, the one thing that this movie failed on that the sequel, The Suicide Squad, improved on was character work. Now, to understand this, we need to look at Suicide Squad 2016 and the characters in it. Besides Harley Quinn and Deadshot, the other characters were bland and boring and forgettable. Harley Quinn was okay and Deadshot was a hit and a miss for me. The way they introduced the characters didn't help either. The structure of the movie was so bad that for the first 20 minutes I actually thought that Amanda Waller was a protagonist of the movie. Deadshot and Harley Quinn are the only two characters to get a meaningful introduction, and the rest are introduced by this.
What up, fellas? Man, I want to kill you right now.
Also, the movie is filled with pointless scenes like this, which do nothing to serve the story, they just exist to pad the runtime.
That is called loaf. Loaf. It's got a little bit of biscotti in there. Toenails. Rat shit. Everything a grown fella needs like you.
Deadshot's arc is not fully fleshed out. His motivation for joining the Suicide Squad is very lackluster and it makes it hard for the audience to connect to. He's introduced as a hard-ass assassin with a daughter. We're told that his reason for joining the squad is to be with his daughter. Then we're told he also wants to kill the Batman, because the movie actually shows this at the end during the temptation scene. At the end, he does see his daughter, but then he goes back to prison and never sees her again. Why? His character arc is more of a character circle, since he ends up where he was in the beginning. Harley Quinn, where to start with this one? She's actually a good character, fun to watch, but her story in this one is a mess. It's not clear what she wants or her motivation. She wants to be with the Joker. That's her whole motivation. You'd think the amount of abuse she receives for him would be enough to make her goal to stay away from him. She's with the Joker at the beginning, and at the end she's with the Joker. Again, character circles. All the characters have nothing to offer except for El Diablo. He's the only one I can say has some sort of meaningful arc. Amanda Waller plays the role of necessary evil, but that's all you need to know about her. She stays consistent till the end of the movie, and as far as I'm concerned, her character was fine. She was not the main focus of the movie. Also, this movie goes for 40 minutes and it's still introducing new characters. For 40 minutes. Needless to say, this movie was terrible. The Suicide Squad, however, was very awesome because James Gunn made the decision to focus more on the characters. Not to say that the movie was perfect. The movie definitely has its flaws, but the character work was masterfully done. When it comes to characters, this movie is very consistent and never misses a beat. Bloodsport. The first thing we learn about Bloodsport is that he didn't want to join the squad. His motivation is clear from the start. He joins the squad to save his 16-year-old daughter from adult jail. Also, his relationship with Ratcatcher 2 is well done. All you need to know about Ratcatcher 2 is that her dad taught her to control rats and had a drug problem. Now, the Peacemaker is a direct parallel to Bloodsport, only he has different motivations for joining the team. Polka Dot Man. His mother experimented on him and his siblings, and he gained an interdimensional disease which gave him his powers. King Shark eats people, but he's very, very lonely and finds it hard to make friends. The movie also makes a smart decision to follow one perspective. Bloodsport. The characters are introduced through his eyes, which is something the prequel was lacking. A highlight for me from this movie will be the bus scene all the way to the bar scene. The scene begins with Ratcatcher 2 asking Bloodsport about his fear of rats. Bloodsport accuses her of having daddy issues, and she explains that she loved her father. She proceeds to explain about her father's burdens and his experiments with rats, which he shared with her. After her father died, she came to America and was arrested for armed robbery, and explains that she didn't consider rats weapons. This draws a parallel to her and Bloodsport's daughter. She then asks Bloodsport again why he's afraid of rats, and he explains that his father used them to punish him for inefficiency as a child. There was a sweet connection between Bloodsport and Ratcatcher, and Bloodsport vows to protect her, which pays off later. They arrive at the bar scene, and there's a heartwarming scene of a group singing and having fun and genuinely connecting. Cut to Nanaue, who's very lonely in the van. Now compare this to the bar scene in Suicide Squad. The plot halts so the group can go have a drink, and I guess they have a conversation on why they got picked for the team. The conversation then turns into El Diablo explaining why he's afraid or hates to use his powers, but he already used them before this and he will use them afterwards, so what was the point? Harley tells him to own it. Why? If it was to encourage him to use his powers, then he already did. He already found motivation to use his powers. They conclude that they're bad people, and then out of nowhere they decide to be heroes because Rick Flag somehow convinced them to. Now these two scenes exist to serve one purpose, and that is to flesh out the main characters. One succeeds because it doesn't halt the movie and is actually paid off later, while the other one fails because it's a massive waste of time. It halts the movie to deliver irrelevant character work. The reason I chose these two scenes is because they best represent why one movie is great while the other one is terrible. They sit at the core which define these movies. The scene from the Suicide Squad works because everything in it plays on the things that we already know. It also adds extra layers to the characters, and it eventually gets paid off at the end. Bloodsport does end up keeping his promise to Ratcatcher too. Nanaue gains some new friends. You get the gist. Nothing in this movie regarding character feels pointless, tacked on, or meaningless, while the bar scene was just a jumbled mess. If you were to ask me what kind of movie The Suicide Squad is, I would say it's close to a movie about redemption or a movie about outcasts. Any filmmaker writing a movie similar to this has an obligation to produce the most consistent and compelling character arc, because stories like this don't work unless they're driven by very compelling characters, and I think James Gunn understood this. And that's why The Suicide Squad succeeds better than its prequel, and why I think it's the DCEU's best movie yet.